I was standing there with a wrapped gift in my hands, surrounded by family and strangers, when my daughter laughed and said, "I don't need your money or you." In that moment, I didn't just lose my child, I lost my place in the world. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. I can still feel the weight of that gift in my hands. It wasn't heavy, not really, but my arms remember it like it was made of stone. The room was warm, filled with voices, glasses clinking, polite laughter bouncing off walls I helped paint with my own hands years ago. This was supposed to be a simple moment, a father giving something to his daughter, that's all. I was 68 years old then. I'd learned how to stand quietly, how to wait my turn, how not to demand space in rooms that no longer belonged to me. So I waited near the table, watching her move from group to group, confident, loud, glowing in a way that made people lean toward her. Every time she laughed, someone else laughed too. I remember thinking, she got that from me. The confidence, the presence, or maybe I just wanted to believe that. The gift wasn't expensive by her standards. She'd done well for herself, better than I ever did, but it meant something. I'd spent weeks thinking about it, not because of the money, but because I knew whatever I gave her would be judged. By her. By everyone else in that room. I wanted it to say something simple. I see you. I'm proud of you. I'm still your father. When someone tapped a glass and called for attention, my chest tightened. This was it. I wasn't supposed to speak much. Just hand it to her, smile, maybe say a line or two. That was the plan. I stepped forward when my name was called, feeling every ear in my knees, every eye on my back. She turned toward me slowly, not surprised, almost prepared. I smiled first. That was my mistake. I held out the gift, said her name the way I did when she was little, the softer version no one else uses. I told her I'd been waiting a long time to give her this. The room went quiet, in that way people get when they expect something sentimental. She looked at the box, then she looked at me, and then she laughed. Not nervous laughter, not awkward laughter. Clean, confident laughter. "I don't need your money," she said, loud enough for the room to hear. Then, without missing a beat, she added, "Or you." There was a pause afterward. Not silence exactly, more like the sound dropped out of the room. I could hear my own breathing. I could hear someone shifting their weight behind me. I could feel my face getting hot, but my hands went cold. I stood there holding the gift because I didn't know what else to do with it. No one moved to help. No one spoke. A few people smiled uncomfortably, like they were watching something they didn't plan to, but wouldn't stop. She took a sip of her drink, still looking at me, like she'd said something clever, like she'd finally told a joke she'd been holding on to. I nodded. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. I nodded like she'd just explained something reasonable. Then I lowered the gift and stepped back. That was the first humiliation. The public one, the kind people think fades with time. It didn't. What hurt more came after, in the minutes that followed, when the room slowly remembered how to breathe. Conversations restarted, quieter now, tilted away from me. No one came over. No one asked if I was okay. I became furniture, something you don't look at directly. I found a chair near the wall and sat down, the gift still in my lap. I remembered noticing a wrinkle in the wrapping paper and smoothing it with my thumb over and over like that could fix something. People assume moments like that come out of nowhere. They don't. They're built. Layer by layer, year by year. I wasn't a perfect father. I know that. I worked too much. I said no more than I should have. I believed that providing was the same as being present, because that's what my father believed. But I never disappeared. I never turned away when she needed me. I was always there, quietly, reliably, unfashionably there. Somewhere along the way, that became embarrassing. As I sat there, I started noticing small things. The way her friends glanced at me, then away. The way my own relatives avoided my eyes. The way she never once looked back in my direction, not even to see if she'd gone too far. That told me something important. This wasn't a slip. This was practiced. She'd rehearsed that line. Maybe not out loud, but in her head. She'd chosen the moment, the audience, the tone, and she'd chosen me as the thing she no longer needed. I stayed longer than I should have. Another mistake. I told myself leaving too quickly would look dramatic, so I stayed, shrinking by the minute, listening to laughter that no longer included me. When I finally stood to leave, no one stopped me. Outside, the night air felt sharper than it should have. I sat in my car for a long time without starting it, the gift on the passenger seat. I didn't open it. I didn't throw it away. I just looked at it and tried to understand how a man can spend a lifetime building something, only to be told, publicly, that it has no value. That was the night I realized something else, too, something quieter, but more dangerous. She hadn't just rejected me. She'd rewritten me, and everyone in that room had accepted her version. That's where this really begins. I didn't drive right away. I sat there with the engine off, watching people leave through the glass doors behind me. They were still smiling, still holding drinks, still living inside a moment that had crushed something in me. A few of them glanced toward my car, recognized me, then quickly looked away, like shame was contagious. I finally started the engine and pulled out, slow and careful, the way you do when your hands aren't quite listening to you. Every red light felt longer than it should have been. Every street felt unfamiliar, even the ones I'd driven for decades. That happens when your place in the world shifts without warning. At home, I carried the gift inside and set it on the kitchen table. The house was quiet, too quiet. No music, no television, just the hum of the refrigerator and the sound of my own breathing. I loosened my tie, sat down, and stared at that box like it might explain itself if I waited long enough. I thought about opening it. I thought about throwing it away. I did neither. Instead, I poured myself a drink I hadn't planned on having, and sat there until the ice melted. Somewhere between the first sip and the last, something settled in me. Not anger, not yet. Something colder, a realization. She hadn't just humiliated me as her father, she'd done it as a statement, to mark distance, to announce independence. And she'd chosen the one thing she knew I valued more than money or pride, being seen as her father, to tear apart in public. That takes intent. The next morning, my phone started buzzing, messages from relatives, a couple of old friends, carefully worded texts. Rough night? Hope you're okay. No one asked what really happened. They'd already decided. By noon, I understood why. Someone had posted a video, not the whole moment, just enough. Me stepping forward, the gift, her laugh, her words. The clip ended before my reaction, like my silence was proof of guilt. It was already spreading, shared with captions I didn't recognize but understood immediately. Setting boundaries. You don't owe anyone respect. I watched it once, then again. Then I turned the sound off and watched the faces in the background. People nodding, smiling, agreeing. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just between us anymore. My role had been reassigned. By evening, she still hadn't called. No message, no explanation. Just that video doing the talking for her. I realized then that silence can be louder than shouting, and she was very good at it. I thought back over the years, searching for the moment this version of me was born in her mind. The father she felt justified rejecting. I remembered arguments that ended without resolution. Times I chose practicality over comfort. Times I assumed love was understood without being explained. Assumptions are dangerous things. Days passed. The clip faded, replaced by new distractions, but the damage stayed. At church, people were polite in that distant way. At the grocery store, a woman I'd known for years pretended not to see me. I hadn't done anything new, but perception doesn't need facts. It needs confidence, and she had plenty of that. One afternoon, I ran into an old colleague who'd always respected me. He hesitated before speaking, then said, "Kids these days, They don't do things like that unless there's a reason. That sentence told me everything. I went home and finally opened the gift. Inside was a bracelet, simple, engraved on the inside with words I'd chosen carefully weeks earlier. No matter how far you go, I'm here. I sat there holding it, realizing how badly I'd misread the distance between us. But I also realized something else. She believed she had the final word. She believed I would accept the role she'd assigned me. Quiet, ashamed, fading into the background the way older men are expected to do when they become inconvenient. She was wrong. I didn't want revenge the way movies show it. I didn't want shouting or confrontation. I wanted something cleaner, something undeniable, something that wouldn't require me to raise my voice at all. Because the truth is, I knew her better than she knew herself, and she'd given me exactly what I needed. Time has a way of revealing patterns when you stop rushing to defend yourself. I didn't reach out to her, not because I didn't want to, but because I finally understood something I'd ignored for years. Every time I tried to explain myself in the past, she grew stronger, more certain, more convinced that silence from me meant victory for her. So this time, I let the quiet sit where it was. Weeks passed. In that quiet, I started noticing things I'd missed before. Not about her, about how people talked around her. I heard it in half sentences at family gatherings I was no longer invited to, but still heard about. I saw it in the way acquaintances repeated her words, but never added their own. She had control of the narrative, yes, but only because no one had heard the whole story. And that's the thing about stories. They don't stay owned forever. One afternoon, an old family friend stopped by, someone who'd known her since she was little. She didn't mention the party, didn't mention the video. Instead, she asked me something simple. How are you holding up? It wasn't the question, it was the tone. There was doubt in it, not suspicion, curiosity. That's when I realized the ground wasn't as solid under my daughter's feet as she thought. People were starting to notice the imbalance. So I began doing something that felt strange at first. I spoke, but only when asked, and only with facts. No emotion, no defense, no bitterness. I didn't explain her behavior, I explained mine. I wasn't perfect, I'd say. I made mistakes. But I never stopped being present. That kind of honesty unsettles people. It doesn't fit neatly into outrage or applause. It forces comparison. Meanwhile, she was still talking, online, in conversations, in carefully phrased comments about independence and growth, and leaving behind what no longer serves you. She sounded polished, empowered, but polished stories crack under repetition. Someone eventually asked her a question she wasn't prepared for. What did he actually do? She didn't have an answer that landed. I heard about it secondhand, the way most truths travel. A cousin mentioned it casually, said she'd gone quiet, changed the subject, smiled too quickly. That's when I knew the balance had shifted. I didn't plan a confrontation. I planned a moment. It came at a family event months later. A small one. Nothing staged. Just enough people to matter. I almost didn't go. Old instincts told me to avoid rooms where I might be diminished again. But something in me was steadier now. When I arrived, conversation slowed. Not stopped. Just adjusted. I greeted people the same way I always had. Calm, measured, present. I didn't look for her. I didn't avoid her either. She found me. She stood across the room, watching, waiting for something, an apology maybe, or a collapse. When neither came, she approached. You've been very quiet, she said, loud enough for others to hear. I nodded. I figured you'd said everything that needed saying. A few people looked up, not because of the words, but because of the stillness behind them. She smiled tightly. You could have called. I could have, I said, but I didn't want to interrupt the story you were telling. That landed. I could feel it. Not sharply, slowly. Someone nearby shifted. Another stopped pretending not to listen. She tried again. I just wanted space. I gave it to you, I said. Publicly. That was it. No accusation, no explanation, just a mirror held at the right angle. The room didn't erupt. It didn't need to. People began filling in the gaps themselves. That's the most powerful kind of reckoning, the kind you don't control anymore. She excused herself shortly after. Left early. For the first time, I wasn't the one disappearing. In the days that followed, I noticed subtle changes. Invitations returned. Conversations softened. People asked questions, not about the incident, but about my life, my work, my memories, my version. I never corrected anyone. I didn't have to, because when someone humiliates you publicly, they expect you to shrink. What they don't expect is patience. And patience, used correctly, becomes something else entirely. Patience doesn't feel powerful when you're practicing it. It feels like waiting in a room where the door never opens. But eventually, people start wondering why you're still standing there so calmly. The call came from her, not long after that family gathering. No warning, no apology built into the tone, just her voice, controlled, careful, like she was stepping onto thin ice. "I think people are getting the wrong idea," she said. I let that sit between us. "About what?" I asked. "About us?" she replied. "About you." There it was, not concern, damage control. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't defend myself. I said the one thing she wasn't ready for. "They're getting the idea you showed them." Silence. Real silence this time. Not the kind she used on me. The kind that forces you to hear your own thoughts. She tried to pivot. Talked about how things looked, how it affected her, her image, her work, her relationships. She never once asked how it felt to be me. That's when I understood something final. This was never about pain. It was about power. "I'm not going to fix this for you," I said. "I already played my part." "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means I'm done explaining myself in rooms you control." She accused me of being cold, of holding grudges, of changing. I let her talk. When she finished, I said calmly, "You taught me how." The call ended shortly after. In the months that followed, the story finished correcting itself. Quietly, professionally. People stopped treating her words as gospel. They started noticing patterns. The way she dismissed others. The way she framed herself against everyone else. Narratives like that don't age well. Mine did. I didn't regain what I lost that night. Not completely. You don't get back moments like that. But I regained something else. Something steadier. My name. When people talk about me now, they don't whisper. They don't tilt their heads in sympathy. They speak normally, respectfully, like they're addressing a man who didn't beg to be understood. As for her, we speak rarely, cordially. There's distance there, and it's earned, not as punishment, as consequence. The gift sits in a drawer, still unopened by her. It doesn't bother me anymore. It reminds me that giving doesn't obligate acceptance, and rejection doesn't erase truth. I'm an old man now. I don't need to win rooms. I just need to walk into them whole. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Public humiliation feels permanent, until the person who caused it realizes they can't escape what it revealed. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. Thank you for watching.